All right. If you are watching this, like, and you've never seen Brenda's background, like, I just feel like it's so her. Mine is like, I don't really know. I feel like the other side of my office is significantly more attractive, but you're just staring at my blank wall. Okay, so I wanted to bring Brenda on because she's a client that I've been working with for almost 2 years. Well, by the time this comes out, 2 years. And we've gone through so many, I think, phases. It's not even like ebbs and flows. Like, I think it's really phases of your growth in business. And so I just want you to kind of tell me, we're going to dive into everything, but just like a broad overview, how do you feel like you are mentally now as a business owner, like in saying that versus like early 2022?
I think like stable would be like the number one word I would look for. Like my mental like state is way more stable. When I came to you, I was like I was wanting to launch all the time. I was wanting to like act on emotion. I was wanting to like do all the shiny object things. And like if you like really were like, okay, look, we need to like put blinders on and focus on this one thing. And now I feel like that has also like flow obviously transformed my business and the way I work in my business, because I've been able to like essentially like chill the fuck out and like look at my business from like a realistic standpoint and like where I'm going versus just focusing on right now.
And we'll kind of talk about this, but one of the things that I think or one of the ways I'm different, I think, than a lot of coaches that at least we see on the internet, right, is that I don't implement shiny things, right? Like I never dangled like ads in front of you. I never dangled a launch in front of you. And so when you came to me, I remember, one, you had already been taught a model that was unsustainable to you because you are a mom, you are a wife, like you have, and I always tell you, I forget about that because you've never once like even mentioned it being a hurdle in your scale. But I remember you told me that you had like a 30K month or something once from a launch, but ultimately you were bringing in about $3,000 in recurring revenue. And so that's just not sustainable, right? And if you divide that amongst the year, like we're not making enough money. And so you were taught this way of like launching and you were good at that. And I remember the day that I told you we're not going to launch and we're going to cut your prices in half and you panicked. So can you tell me, like, number one, what you were charging and what retention was like, and just why you were charging that much?
So I would love to have an answer on the why. I think it was just a recommendation from a business coach and I trusted them and I went with it. I was charging $1,000 a month. It was a 3-month contract and it was not sustainable. I was constantly in like this, what I would consider like fight or flight mode of like, oh fuck, like I made one sale, that's great, but I know that sale's not going to renew at 3 months. So I got to start finding someone. And it was like this constant cycle. And like before I even worked with you, I had like no really concept of what even MRR was. And when you told me I was going to cut my prices in half, I thought, I was like, and I told you this, I was like, oh my God, what the fuck did I do? Why did I hire her? Like, why am I doing this? Like, and I think I told you, I was like, I don't like this. And you're like, okay, you need to chill out. Like, this is long vision, long game. And I think that you telling me like, hey, this is the long game and getting me out of like this right here, right now mentality and stop chasing that was huge. Because like you said, it was like, I was charging a shit ton of money and like yeah, my program was good, but I wasn't helping very many people. I wasn't connecting with my audience. Like there was just so much that was not going right. And it was like I was just roughing it, right? Like I was just roughing it to make money and trying to figure it out along the way. And I was struggling.
And you're somebody that, I always say the pace at which we scale is always dependent upon the cleanup, the messes I need to clean up. And I don't think that you had messes in your business. It was just the way that it was structured. And it's so common that I work with a client who I know has phenomenal skill set. Like there was never a question. That's what's been so easy about working with you is that there's never been a question of, is Brenda a good coach? Is she qualified? Like you've got that on lock, but the business was a mess. Like you said, the marketing was not super clear. right? You were launching, you were charging way too much. And again, this is not, if anyone's listening to this and they're thinking, fuck, I charge $1,000 a month. It's not that you can't do that. However, I know that for Brenda to get the results that she does, working with the kind of client she is, dealing with hormones and all of that, that's not a 3-month transformation. Somebody's not going to be able to pay $1,000 for 24 months, usually, right? And so I remember, let's talk about the first 6 months together. So to me, this was much more just reframing your mind around your business. So can you kind of tell me the evolution that you had as like a self-leader just in those first 6 months? Because I know you had to say no to a potential big month to stop launching. Like you had to really say no to some income. But then I also want you to tell me when you started to notice that revenue kind of stacking, because it was fairly quick.
Yeah, I think like really, I would say like the first 4 months was like a struggle because I felt like I constantly needed to be doing something and like launching, putting something new out, working on a new course, whatever the hell it was, right? Like I felt like I needed to be doing that. And you were like, no, we don't even worry about that. Let's fix what's going on in your business and like get this to where it needs to be. And I think the first 4 months were kind of like that slow down to speed up mentality. You know, you kept telling me that. And I think again, during that whole time, I was like, I'm fucked. Like, I don't know why I did this. Like I was struggling mentally and you were just like, just get on the other side. Like, I was just like, and we tell people that all the time. Cause I was like, oh my God, like, you know, because all the coaches, and I think this is something that's different. And I just want to mention this now is like the difference that's changed so much in my business is I was always looking for coaches who like said, like, I can make you 3 or 5K in like 30 days, 40 days, and like, you can make it quick. And like, yeah, that can happen if you're at that place in your business, but that's not what I needed. I needed someone who was going to say, okay, if you really want this to work long-term, here's what we need to do. And like, that's what you did. And you basically forced me to do that. And then after that, I scaled really quickly. Like even just taking those 4.5 months to slow down. After that, I don't even remember what it was, but like I think I was making like 8K, 9K right around there, like within the next, 5 to 6 months. After that, it scaled to like 12 to 15. And then after that's when I got 20 to 30K months. So I did go very quickly, but it's crazy because sitting here thinking about those 4 months, I never thought I would even go anywhere when I was sitting in that spot.
Can you tell me what your like total revenue was, gross profits for 2022, and then where you're at for 2023?
Yeah, 2022 was 80, right around 80K. And I remember thinking like how fucking amazing that was because like my job, I didn't make that much. And then you're like, okay, no, we want to do 200 at least. And I was like, okay, you're fucking crazy again. Like, how am I going to do that? Right. And then again, I did it. And now like I went from 80K and whatever year we started working together, I don't remember, but 80K is what I made that year. And like the end of this year, I'm going to be making around 340. So that's a huge jump in a small amount of time. Yeah.
Right. And here's what I want to say too. So we're going to dive into, because I know that you mentioned, I remember our first contract was 6 months and you were panicking for the first 4 months of it. And so what was funny though, is I do remember after about 5 months, you had secured 6 figures. Like you had enough income contracted, you had a stable base. And I think that's when you kind of thought, oh shit, okay, I think I have something here, because we really did pick apart everything in your business. Then we get to the end of 22, moving into 2023. And that's where we started talking about kind of that $1 million idea, right? Because I knew from the very beginning that you had something. I always said that like you had that it factor, right? And any of you that see the clients that have been working with me for 2-3 years, they have that. There's something about them that's just special and unique, and they hustle. You and I never have the conversation of like, can we do it or not? Like you just execute, you just fucking do it. And that's one thing I want to say, because people are going to hear you say that you went from 80 to 340 in a 2-year time frame or whatever, and they're going to think, damn, okay, well, shit, is that normal? No, it's not normal. What's unique about Brenda is that, again, she always executes. And even though there are sticking points, there's a million things that have gone wrong and have slowed us down and whatever, but you've just continued to move through those, right? Because we have had the bigger vision in mind. So I want to talk about what we've done in 2023, again, for the long-term vision to kind of set us up for the next year. So let's talk about this course that you're bringing out. And let's talk about how we came up with the idea and what you've done in the past year to kind of like pivot towards this business mentoring that was almost kind of accidental.
Yeah. So I came to you in last year, mid-year. I don't remember when it was. And I was like, hey, like, I'm a marketing person. I love that type of thing. And I'm like, I just love the business aspect of it. Right. I love that. And I think I came to you and I was like, hey, I would love to start like a marketing agency. And you're like, okay, like, that's great. And you're like talking through it and you're like, let's sit on this. And I sat on it and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. That's not what this is. And I had already been working with some people that I had met in the MLM space, just helping them kind of pivot and get out of that space and into their own coaching. And that's when we're like, okay, like maybe this is where that marketing, thing was coming from, because you're enjoying doing this. And that's when last year I kind of just started randomly sprinkling in the business coaching. I wasn't like posting about it like crazy. I was just kind of like dropping nuggets here and there. And pretty quickly I had 5 clients. I stayed with those 5 clients for, a period of time so I could figure out what I was doing, and made sure that I could support them. But that's whenever, you were like, okay, like, this is what you're doing this, like, what are your thoughts? And I'm like, okay, like, I think I could do a course or like a business coaching program that is more aimed toward the functional space and people who are like regular fitness instructors, but know that, or fitness coaches, and they know they want to add more. They know there's a bigger picture to the fitness, right? They just don't want to do meal plans and workouts. So that's when you're like, okay, so like, could this be your $1 million idea? And I was like, what is $1 million idea? Like, what are you talking about? And that's kind of how the whole course kind of came to fruition is through that whole process of like knowing I wanted to do something bigger than just fitness coaching, but figuring out what direction to go and how to go. And, you kind of challenging me to look at it from a different perspective.
And I want to clarify too, if you're listening to this, because you will find that most of my clients, not just my private clients, but most of my clients come to me because they have, whether they realize it or not, they have a desire to create a course. Most of them don't want a team of assistant coaches. Now, I do have some clients that do, and that's fine. But I typically attract people that are trying to build something. And when I say course, I don't mean it's passive, but Brenda could only take so many one-to-one clients, right? She didn't want a team of ACs. So what's the next step? The next step is, okay, where are we creating a legacy? And Brenda has so much passion for helping other coaches get out of that monotony of just macros, right? And kind of, okay, how can we advance your skill set? So, her course, which you will see this year, is very divided between the business skill set, but also kind of like the ghost coaching and intro to the hormone testing and all of that, so that you feel confident as a coach to keep scaling, right? And in turn, she is going to impact more coaches, more clients, right? So that's kind of, when I say $1 million idea, if you've never heard me talk about that, it's like, what is that idea that you want to be known for, right? What's the legacy you want to create? And it's something that we're not going to put out unless you really have the desire to build a 7-figure business. Otherwise, you can have a phenomenal income if you just want to have 30 to 50 clients, but that's not where Brenda wanted to stop. So when we think about this year, I think about a lot of things that have been challenging, right? Like, I think about obviously just the development of creating a course. I think about the team hiring, right? Like, let's kind of talk about how you have built a lean team and how you've worked through various operators, right? Or OBMs, whatever you're familiar with or want to say. But like, that to me has been the challenge with going from quick to like taking your time with finding the right people in your company.
Yeah. And that's something I'm not good at. And that is like, I'm very much like a right here, right now person. And like, if I find someone and they vibe, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're it. Well, then they get in and it's not. But so the whole process of hiring and bringing people onto the team has definitely been a learning curve for me. I am very much an empath, and like I connect with people on that level. But then when you're working with them in your business, that can't be the main thing you're making decision on, right? So like you've been really good about saying like, okay, like that's great. I'm glad you like her, but where's her skill set? Like, how is she going to help, or he going to help? And looking at that. But the last 6 months have been crazy when it comes to just hires and finding people inside to put inside my team that are going to like help with that big vision, because ultimately, again, that's what we're working on. And I do feel like because of that, one of the things that I'm super grateful for is like understanding that slow down to speed up that we worked on a year ago, because through all of this and building my course and all of that, I've been able to maintain my revenue, and I'm okay with that, because I know I'm working on building a team, I'm building a course. So that to me has been really huge. And that's something I've had to say to myself this year has been like, okay, like your revenue is good. You're maintaining this. I've maintained my revenue for almost a year now, like maintain it at 30K or over, or right around there. So to me, that's huge. And like through this process of hiring and building a course and being a mom, like that foundation and that stability that I have in my business is like been crazy, to being able to navigate like the shit show that it's been of hiring and finding the right person and like all of that kind of stuff.
I think that is so underappreciated, because once you saw yourself go from that, 3K to 12 and then 12 to 30, we expect that pace to keep going because we got used to it, right? And I'll even share that about my business, right? Like, yes, our revenue increased a smidge this year, but ultimately, like, I had to maintain my run rate in order to significantly increase next year. And there is something to be said about intentional plateaus, because it's not even like you're stuck. You're just kind of in that maintenance phase, because you know that next year is going to be more of a scale year, right? We had to revamp, maintain, because the coaches that really scale fast, like that you see go from, 6 figures, 500,000, 7, most of them crash and burn. And I can say from experience, I'm thankful that I didn't, but I also am kind of a different breed. And I really had to work quickly in order to fill holes fast, right? Because ultimately you never want client delivery to suffer. And that's the first thing that will happen if you scale too quickly. And so you've been able to really get into a groove with pricing, with selling. And that's something else too. Like, we haven't used ads. We haven't done anything crazy. Like, you've honestly just gotten really freaking good at selling your offer. Now, I want to talk about one of your bucket lists things, which was having an in-person event, which we just had in Scottsdale. So I want you to talk about, you mentioned to me like you didn't really think it was going to happen this year, and then it kind of did happen this year. So tell me about how special that felt to you, and like what that means for just where your business is at.
Yeah. So the retreat itself, like literally, and I talked about this all last week, and it like still makes me emotional, because like for me, like being able to create a space, and like I said, I'm very much an empath. I very much go on vibe, and like being able to be in the same room with all of these women that I've been working with for, most of them longer than 6 months. Two of them were shorter than that. Like that to me has always been something that I desired in my coaching, right? Like as a fitness coach, like there's always been that thought, like, oh, how badass would it be that I could get everyone together? But then whenever I started business coaching, I saw that like it could actually happen. And I think I brought this to you in December, maybe January. Like it was kind of a quick turnaround, like as far as like getting it like out. Like I don't remember maybe even later than that. I don't remember, but doing that was huge. I think not only for me, but also for my business, and understanding like truly that like all the shit that I didn't think I could do when we started working together 2 years ago is all shit that I'm doing now. Right. So now again, I'm like, okay, so now we're looking at next year, like next year's goals and things are all shit that's going to happen. Like, I know we're going to do that. So like when we were sitting there doing all of those exercises, and we were sitting around the fire, and like we were burning our fears and all of that, like I was literally thinking like, okay, like not being able to do this at one point was a fear of mine. Like, this is a fucking reality. Like, I'm sitting here and we're doing this. So it was just, I can't put into words like how amazing it was to me, and like how special and how excited I am to be able to grow, and like continue to build that type of environment and community and just relationships with my clients in that way.
How do you balance like just everything that you do while maintaining mom duties, wife duties? I know it's not easy, but like
Yeah.
I said, you never, that's never a crutch for you.
No, I think for me, and I don't want to get emotional talking about this, I do it because I want my kids to see it, right? Like I like something as little as like going to pick up my kids from school. That's what I like, that's huge. I yesterday, and I'm going to share this more, but like I literally forgot my son had a Thanksgiving feast at school, and I'm like, shit, like I have a client call. Would I normally reschedule a client call? No, but like I can do that. Like I can say like, hey, and she was a mom also, and she actually had something, so it worked out. But I'm like, I don't have to miss out on those things. And then in the process, like I know my daughter, she's 9, like she sees what I do and she's like, hey, like I think I might want to open my own cheer gym, or I think I might want to do this. And I'm like, let's do it. Right. So like I think them seeing that, and also other women seeing that they can take themselves out of like these like standard boxes, and do something that they're truly passionate about is like what keeps me going in the like the whole process of like trying to balance it all. Cause I don't think I balance it all. I really don't. Like balance is a weird word for me. Cause I'm like 1 minute right before we got on this, I'm upstairs telling my kids, like, here's the iPad. Like, I need you to be quiet and like not make a sound. Like I'll take you to go get a slush when we're done if you do. But like, and then the next minute I'm like, like I don't think I'm like the best at balance, the word balance, but I very much have grit and I have determination and I know what I'm capable of and I know what legacy I want to leave for my kids. Like we talked about the legacy, and that's what kind of just allows me to keep going through the shit show of a life really that I have, to be honest.
I know I mean, I work with a ton of moms and parents, right? And I think it's just inevitable because we get older and a majority of people have kids, right? And that's always a question is, how am I going to be able to scale this and not miss out on my kids and miss out on little things? And I really do think that you said it. Like, I don't think that you're ever, if I had to guess, I'm sure you don't feel like you're the perfect mom. I'm sure you still feel
No.
like there could be more time here and less time here or whatever. And I think that just really understanding what your version of balance looks like, because I don't believe in work-life balance. I think that is a BS terminology. I think we all have our definition of that. But ultimately, when you think about the dynamic and your relationship with your business, 2 years ago to now, how has that improved?
Oh gosh, tremendously. I think the biggest thing is like I have boundaries in my business. I think that's something that was huge. I didn't have boundaries and I didn't have standards for myself. So like I wasn't holding like for me, business is so much, I hate saying easier, but it is. It's easier when you have expectations as yourself and you show up as a CEO. So like when I know, like whenever you challenge me to be like, okay, like how are you showing up as a CEO? What are the things that you're doing? Are you looking at like when I stepped out of like just trying to like run my business in the day and started looking at it as a full picture, it actually allowed me to have more freedom and more time because I was more efficient. I was getting things done when I should have gotten them done before, and I wasn't wasting my time scrolling on Instagram, right? Like I think before we started, like I was spending hours a day on Instagram just recording stories because that's what I thought I need to do. And now stories is like, yes, I get on there and do it, but that's not the first thing that I focus on, right? So I think the efficiency, the boundaries, the structure, all of that is what's taken my business from where it is, but it's also given me back a lot of obviously time with my kids and more freedom just because of the money I'm making, the structure I have, the team I'm putting in place, all of the things.
I mean, obviously your revenue is increasing, things like that, but what is it like? Tell me about why you value like a long-term mentorship, right? Like why have you continuously re-signed? Because I think that a lot of times, number one, again, I've already said that your scale is quicker than a lot of people's scale. Okay. That's why I said you're different. Like you've got that like 4% mentality, so to speak. Right. But I think about a lot of coaches out there listening and that are scaling at a slower pace, they're figuring out their vision or whatever it is. And they may think, okay, well, I like my coach, but that one's advertising this. I should probably try this. And it's almost like a different 6-month contract every 6 months, right? Like, why have you continued to stay?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me was learning and seeing the value in the long game, and the fact that, like, for me, I know, my business. I know, my, like, as stupid as it sounds, my tendencies, like how I react to things. So it's like having someone who isn't like, for me, it's not just about like coaching the strategies. It's like more than that to me. And that's what I got from you. And I think, before I worked with you, I was never, I mean, I had so many coaches before you, right? Like I never saw the long-term game until I saw what slowing down, what having someone that like actually cares about the long game, like all of that has made such a difference in my business. And like after the 6 months, it was a no-brainer, right? Like resign after the next, like, it's always been a no-brainer. Like the minute you send my contract, I'm signing it, because I feel like it's a true partnership. Like you're not here. I'm not creating codependency. We're not doing that. But I do feel like you are here to help me grow and get to where I want to be. And to me, it's stupid to want to start over with someone else. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're jumping from thing to thing, you're probably not moving forward. You're probably not making the progress that you want to make. Or if you are doing it, it's not sustainable. Because the strategies are just quick fixes, right? And like that's what I didn't want. And that's why it's been so easy for me to resign and continue to be like, I mean, we're talking 2025 now, you know what I mean? Like I fully intend on being around by then. And I think that's the kind of conversations you should be having with your mentor.
I mean, especially once you start to get to this point, right? Because it's not about quick cash anymore. It's not hurry up. Cause like that was the thing in the beginning, right? You were like, all right, if we're going to stop launching, I've got to pay my fucking bills, Taeler. And I was like, cool, mission accepted. Like, let's fucking go. Right. But then when we could actually breathe for a second, it's like, okay, cool. What are we doing in the next 1 to 2 years? And now we're like, okay, what do the next like 2 to 5 look like? Which is how I'm going to challenge you this year, right? Is like, let's get the 5-year game plan, which is really hard and foggy oftentimes for where you're at. But that's where you have to start thinking. And you are somebody that wants to create that generational wealth. You've never said to me, like, I don't want to work anymore. And so I asked that because I do think that there's so many coaches, and I am not perfect. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but I do think, even personally from my investing, once you find somebody who knows your shit and your baggage, like just stay with them, unless it is really an awful fit. Like it's going to take you 3 to 6 months truly to like start over with somebody. And so if you're starting over every year, like you're not going to keep growing, right? And then you might get to a certain level in your business where you have additional experts in, right? Like you may hire a sales coach, you may hire a marketing coach or something like that. But ultimately, I have found such value because for me, I love the relationships, and running a business is so lonely. Even if you have a family and support, ultimately no one gets it like you do. And so when you can just like, yes, I got a 30K month. Like, who are you going to say that to other than maybe your family members, but like probably just your coach. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you can't really have those same.
Not even family. Yeah. My husband, that's the only person I would say that to, aside from like, anytime any of that shit happens in my business, you're the first person I go to. And then I'm like, oh yeah, here's this, so, there's one of the kids, mom life. There you go. But yeah, it truly is. And I think, like I said, like it's funny because when you look at us like on Instagram, you would think like these two people are so opposite, but then when we get it together inside our business, we're like fucking dynamic. Like we're doing shit. We're making gains. And I don't know. It's been a really fun learning curve for me, because it has been just seeing my business and making the shifts in how I view mentorship and all of the things has been like really fucking cool.
It's funny you say that, because I don't think, if you look at my profile and compare it with any of my private clients, I don't think any of them like would make sense to somebody just looking. But then again, I think if you put me next to my mentor, you'd also be like, I don't get it. So
this is true.
I don't know.
Unless we're in docs or we're in a in a, like, whatever it's called, doing bops and kicks and all this stuff.
Listen, I know it's, see, and that's the thing too. It's like the longer that you work with somebody, you also just develop this dynamic where it is more of a friendship, or you just feel like you can trust that person with everything. I think that transactional isn't the right word, but I think that the first few months with a coach or a mentor, it's very much like, okay, I paid you, I ask questions, I get answers, right? And you don't really know them, they don't really know you. And so I also will say one thing that I've loved about you is that, like, you and I talk multiple times a week, right? If there's a week that I don't hear from you, I'm checking in, asking, and making sure we're good.
Yeah.
But that's also really important too, is I think so many people don't know how to utilize their mentor because they don't know how to ask questions. And I think it stems from a lack of vision. So the last thing I want to ask you is, for people listening to this, let's say they're listening and they're like, damn, I'm really aspiring to grow, right? Like, if somebody is around that 6-figure mark looking to scale, but they're stuck, like, what would you encourage them to do?
Well, number one, obviously, if they don't have a mentor, I would highly suggest finding a mentor and someone, like I said, that's willing to look at it from the long vision, not like a right here, right now, how much money can we make in 3 months? Because that's not realistic, especially if you're wanting to make multi-6 figures long term. And then the next thing would be probably to reevaluate your how you're running your business from the back end standpoint, as far as like your strategies. Are you showing up in a way that's like obviously supporting that long vision and that goal? Because I do think a lot of coaches scale really quickly, and it's like just based on, you know, some people get lucky. I know that sounds bad, but like some people get lucky and they grow very quickly because of social media, but then they get to a point and they're like, fuck, like, how do I take this and I grow? And that's where like the actual business aspect comes in, right? So I think looking at that, and then the slow down to speed up, not being afraid to slow down, not even being afraid to maybe see a small drop in your revenue for a short term to be able to get to that next goal. So I think those are the three main things that I would say to someone in that situation.
That's so true. I mean, the drop in revenue, and that's not even saying like, okay, we're gonna have to cut revenue in half. It's just,
Oh,
I know that for a lot of clients I work with, if we are really looking, like, let's say they've got 50 to 75 clients, which is pretty common for a lot of just fitness coaches, and they want to build a course or they want to do whatever, they've often, they don't have enough time, right? And so instead of like a, you know, one out, two in kind of a policy, it has to go to a one out, one in policy, and kind of be in that maintenance space to create room to grow and scale, right? And so, you know, I think the benefit of keeping you at this kind of maintenance level, so to speak, while we've been building and creating events and things like that, is the fact that you now feel really solid with your workflow, and you know that building and creating and launching a course isn't going to stress you out in a way that it might have if we rushed this half a year ago.
yep. Again, like, it comes back to stability for me. Like, I know my business is fucking stable. Like, I know I can take this and grow on it. And like, for me, if my revenue drops like within that like range, like, I know I'm fine. Because again, I know what we're building. You know what I mean? Again, it's just like, it's not a right here, right now thing for me anymore. It literally is like the long vision, and like, what are we wanting to do next year? Because what we're doing right now is essentially setting ourselves up for that. And that's really hard it was really hard for me to see. But now that's what I function on. And I don't stress out about a lot of the little things of, you know, that I normally would, because I know what we're doing, and I know what's going to happen next year.
And watching you grow from, you know, I remember, it's been a while, but like a client leaving would stress you out, right? Where like we've grown so far from that, because that's inevitable. Like, people leave, people don't
Yeah.
resign, right? So anyway, that's been really cool. But I just want to bring you on because I thought that, number one, you are so relatable to so many people. Like, you've got the family, you've got the husband, you're not doing anything flashy and wild. And that's what I really want to just keep pushing about building a business is, listen, when we get to 7 figures, we'll do some crazy fucking shit and experiment, right? But like, that doesn't need to happen on the way to 7. Like, it really doesn't. And I think that so many people put 7 figures in this pedestal, and for reasons that I understand, because I used to think like, damn, if I could get there, you know? And once you kind of have built something like that, you're like, okay, it was really just overcoming my mindset drama, number one, like you have built a lot of emotional intelligence and resiliency. So that's the first thing. If you're a hot mess, it's never going to work. Second thing, you know how to predictably bring in leads. You can sell. You have no issue selling. And the third thing is vision. You have to know why the hell you're doing it ultimately. So anyway, Brenda, thank you for coming on. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I don't think so. I think we dug deep into the last 2 years
We
and
dug
all
deep into the last 2 years, all the
yeah,
business baggage. Yeah, if you guys want to find
all of
Brenda,
it.
I'm linking her Instagram below. So feel free to creep on her, ask her questions, and thanks for hanging out with me.
Love it. Thank you so much.